Absolutely. Here's section 1 of the story, written to be a minimum of 700 words, and kicking off the narrative with intrigue, tension, and the unexpected appearance of a powerful human warship. Hashtag section 1. First contact, the sensor blip. The stars of Sector Zeta 9 shimmered like pinpricks on the obsidian canvas of space. It was a quiet stretch of the Threxian Empire's outer territory, mostly uninhabited and largely forgotten, until now. Aboard the Vorthak dreadnought, flagship of the 7th Expansion Fleet, Commander Eltrax stood rigid before the primary sensor array, his bioluminescent eyes narrowed. The cold hum of the control deck was occasionally punctuated by clicks and whirs as subordinate officers exchanged data and calibrated systems. Commander, hissed Sensor Officer Kethvar, his scaled fingers dancing across the console. We have an anomaly. Unknown contact, coordinates 87.14 by 302.89. It's massive. Eltrax's tendrils twitched in irritation. Another phantom echo? We've been getting those ever since we passed the Targon Rift. Kethvar shook his head, his frills flaring in unease.
No, sir.
This one is real. Confirmed across all arrays. Subspace, gravimetric, thermal. It appeared out of nowhere, like a silent flash. Origin? Unclear. Possibly from a wormhole collapse. But whatever it is, it's not Threxian. And it's not any known ally or subordinate species. That made Eltrax pause. He leaned in toward the display. A rotating 3D hologram of the vessel shimmered into view, hulking, angular, and intimidatingly primitive in design. The hull was dark, scorched in places, layered with thick, metallic plating. Massive cannon ports lined its sides. There were no elegant plasma fins, no polished gravity sails like those on Threxian cruisers. This ship was built for one purpose, war. The bridge quieted. Is that Terran? Whispered one of the junior officers, drawing the ire of his superior with a sharp glance. Eltrax's second in command, Subcommander Vortha, turned slowly. Impossible. The humans were purged during the Soul Displacement War. That was 3 centuries ago. But look at it, Kethvar insisted, zooming in on the hull markings. There, in faded white paint barely visible under the battle scars, were 3 letters. U.S. United Nations ship. The bridge went dead silent. Could it be a derelict? Someone offered, their voice tinged with uncertainty. Drifting wreckage, perhaps caught in a subspace fold for centuries. No, Eltrax's voice was cold. It's active. Emitting low-level power signatures. Shields are fluctuating. The core is stable. That ship is alive. For a moment, no one said a word. Have we hailed it? Vortha asked. We tried on all standard galactic channels. No response. Eltrax's thoughts raced. The Vorthak was powerful, one of the most feared ships in the expansion fleet. But the readings they were seeing from this unidentified vessel, its weapon mass, the density of its armor, the odd electromagnetic distortions, it didn't match anything in their database. It didn't need elegance. It was brute force given form. And if it was human, dispatch scouts, Eltrax ordered. Keep them cloaked low EM signature. I want a full spectrum scan and close-range visuals. Yes, Commander. He turned to Vortha. Ready weapons systems. No attack unless provoked, but we are not taking chances. Notify High Command and Sector Intelligence. Code Black. Potential Solarian resurgence. Vortha's frills tightened. You truly believe they survived? Eltrax didn't answer right away. He walked to the observation deck and stared into the distance. Somewhere, not far from them, that ship drifted in silence. Its silhouette against the starfield looked almost predatory, like a beast watching from the dark. They vanished, he said finally. But that doesn't mean they died. Perhaps they fled. Perhaps they waited. Perhaps they watched us forget them. He turned back toward the command chair and sat slowly. Prepare the fleet, he said. If the humans have returned, we must know why. Below the dreadnought's hull, dozens of smaller ships began to stir. Interceptors launched. Cloaked surveillance drones scattered toward the anomaly. Communications crackled as multiple Threxian destroyers aligned in flanking positions. Still, in the center of the screen, the strange ship remained motionless until it moved. A slow pivot, deliberate, controlled. Not the drift of a derelict, but the turn of a predator fixing its gaze. "Sir," Cathvar whispered, voice trembling. "It's scanning us." On the tactical display, the alien ship's systems flared for a split second, then dimmed again. A silent, subtle pulse that reached across frequencies. It didn't attack. It didn't respond. It just watched. Eltrak exhaled, a cold breath catching in his throat. "May the stars help us," he muttered. "The humans have returned, and they brought weapons." "Let me know when you're ready for Section 2. We'll switch to the human ship, its crew, and their perspective next." "Absolutely." Here's Section 2 of the story, continuing from Section 1 and shifting to the human point of view aboard the UNS Valkyrie. This chapter explores humanity's reappearance and the warship's purpose, tone, and readiness for confrontation. Hashtag Section 2, the human warship, UNS Valkyrie. Minimum 700 words. The stars snapped back into clarity as the wormhole closed behind them. Captain Elena Rourke gripped the armrest of her command chair, her eyes fixed on the main viewport. Before her, Sector Zeta 9 unfolded in a silent sprawl of distant stars, dead moons, and murky nebulae. There was no immediate sign of life, but there was something off. She could feel it. "Status?" she asked, her voice calm but clipped. "Stabilizing main drives," came the reply from the helm. Lieutenant Talia Zhou didn't look up from her controls. "Jump complete. Minor flux in the inertial dampeners. We're holding steady." Commander Marcus Vale, her XO, stood just to her left, arms crossed behind his back in that classic military posture. "Still off course, Captain." The wormhole folded prematurely. "We're about 4 sectors off planned exit coordinates." "Which means," Rourke prompted, "we're in someone else's backyard." Rourke leaned forward slightly. "Anyone interesting?" Before Vale could respond, the ship's AI flickered into presence, its avatar forming just beside the tactical console. A glowing, pale blue woman with a smooth, featureless face and glimmering eyes regarded the bridge crew. "Unknown space," said Nyx, her voice perfectly even, synthetic yet not without tone. "Gravitational anomalies and hyperspace drift patterns suggest this region is under indirect control of the Threxian Empire." That got everyone's attention. "The Threxians," Vale said slowly, almost tasting the word. "They're still around?" "Thriving," Nyx replied. "Their expansion has been aggressive in the centuries since the collapse. This territory was once neutral. No longer." Captain Rourke stood and walked toward the main display. With a quick swipe, Nyx projected the full sector map. It lit up in red where Threxian patrol routes had been logged by deep space probes. One of them was dangerously close. "Perfect," Rourke muttered. "We take one shortcut through a collapsing wormhole and land ourselves in Imperial space." "Should we jump out?" Zhou asked, hands hovering over the controls. "No," Rourke said. "We're here. And someone's likely seen us by now." Vale stepped beside her. "Assuming they even know what they're looking at. We haven't shown our faces in 300 years. Rourke smiled grimly. "Which makes this a perfect test." She turned to the crew. "This is a reconnaissance patrol, not a first strike mission. We stay calm, scan the sector, and leave quietly. But if they bring the fight to us, they'll regret it." Vale finished with a slight nod. A hum rippled through the ship as the defense systems synced into standby. The Valkyrie, an ancient name in human war doctrine, was not a ship meant for diplomacy. Originally built during the Sol Exodus, it had been one of the last warships completed before the collapse of Earth's orbital defense grid. She had been offline for decades, hidden, modified, and then reawakened when humanity finally emerged from the ashes. 2 kilometers long. 5 fusion cores, reinforced with tungsten composite armor plating and an internal skeleton laced with carbon boronite. Armed with kinetic railguns, gravity torpedoes, and prototype energy pulse cannons, some of which even Rourke didn't fully understand. The US Valkyrie wasn't pretty, but it was terrifying. "I'm picking up scans," Vale said suddenly. "Low-level EM pings. Covert. Cloaked vessels. They're watching us." Rourke didn't flinch. "Let them." Nyx pulsed a brighter blue. "They've sent observation drones. Based on acceleration vectors, fleet deployment in this sector is preparing for engagement." The tension on the bridge thickened, but there was no panic. These people had trained for this. This was humanity's first open appearance in centuries, and it wasn't going unnoticed. "Open a broad-frequency broadcast," Rourke ordered. "Galactic Standard." Zhou nodded. "Channel open." Captain Rourke stepped forward, her stance straight, her voice even. "This is Captain Elena Rourke of the United Nations ship Valkyrie, representing the Terran Accord. We are on a peaceful recon patrol. We have no hostile intentions. However, we will defend ourselves with full force if provoked. This is not a threat. It is a promise." She gave a short nod. Zhou cut the transmission. "Message received?" Vale asked. "Broadcast successful," Nyx said. No response. However, enemy vessels have increased power output by 34%. Shield generators online. Weapons charging. Rourke exhaled slowly, turning back toward her command chair. "Red alert," she said softly. The bridge lights dimmed to crimson. Klaxons rumbled through the ship as weapon systems came online, humming with dormant energy. Missile tubes extended. Railgun turrets rotated into position. Energy capacitors began to cycle and charge. "All primary systems nominal," Nyx announced. "Defense grids active. Countermeasures ready. Probability of hostile engagement, 86.4%. "Then let's be ready," Rourke said. "But not first to fire." She sat, the leather of the old command seat creaking under her weight. Her gaze remained on the viewport, where distant stars twinkled deceptively, hiding fleets in their shadows. "They thought we were dead," Vale murmured beside her. "Let them think again," Rourke replied. And in the heart of the Valkyrie, engines pulsed with ancient fury, centuries of silence, now burning to life. "Let me know when you're ready for Section 3, where the Real clash begins. The Valkyrie gets tested, and the galaxy gets its first reminder of what humanity truly is." "Absolutely. Here's Section 3. Clash in Sector Zeta 9, a high-tension, high-impact chapter where the standoff erupts into battle. It showcases humanity's terrifying war doctrine, the Valkyrie's combat prowess, and how unprepared the Threxians are for the return of humans. ## Section 3. Clash in Sector Zeta 9. Minimum 700 words. The void between the two fleets buzzed with invisible tension. On one side, the Threxian patrol armada floated in tight formation, 6 destroyers, 2 cruisers, and the looming shadow of the Vorthak dreadnought at the center. Dozens of smaller strike vessels circled like teeth in a maw. They were calm, confident. After all, they were the inheritors of a galaxy that believed humanity had perished long ago. On the other side, the UNS Valkyrie drifted alone. No support ships. No allies. Just one monolithic vessel of dark steel and firepower, standing against the Threxian wall like a relic from a forgotten age. On the Vorthak S-Bridge, Commander Eltrak studied the human ship's configuration again. Despite its archaic appearance, the readings still defied logic. "There is no elegance in that design," said Subcommander Vortha, sneering at the display. "It is crude. Ugly. Ugly things kill, too," Eltrak muttered. Signals had been exchanged. Warnings delivered. Orders given. Now came the inevitable. "Eltrak," Vortha said cautiously. "The High Council has authorized engagement. They believe we can capture it. They want the humans alive. They may regret that." He gave a nod. "Fire a warning shot." On the Valkyrie, the bridge lights had dimmed to a battle-ready hue. Shields shimmered faintly over the ship's hull, and the weapon systems were humming in anticipation. "They're powering up a main cannon," Nyx reported. Energy spike detected on the forward bow of their largest vessel. "Brace," Rourke said. A lance of plasma shot across the void, a glowing blue streak that sliced space like a sword. It screamed past the Valkyrie, close enough to leave a wake of ionization along the shields but not close enough to hit. "Deliberately wide," Vale muttered. "They're testing us." "Then let's give them their answer," Rourke said.
"Nix.
"Fire a warning shot of our own." "Acknowledged." Without a sound, one of the forward railguns fired. To the naked eye, it was nearly invisible, just a blur of metal and kinetic force. The slug streaked across space and punched through the shield array of a Threxian destroyer without slowing. The ship didn't even get time to react before a chain reaction detonated its core. It exploded in silence, a brilliant bloom of orange and blue, fragments scattering in every direction. The Threxian bridge descended into chaos. Target was not designated for impact. Vortha cried. "That was the warning," Eltrax said, eyes wide. The battle began. Threxian ships surged forward, weapons lighting up the black like a field of stars going nova. Plasma bolts, laser arrays, ionic disruptors, they unleashed everything. It should have been enough to incinerate any warship. But the Valkyrie didn't flinch. Nyx controlled the defense grid with near-perfect precision. Particle shields absorbed energy. Rotating armor plating redirected impact. And then the Valkyrie returned fire. 2 more railguns fired, one destroying an escort frigate in a single hit, the other shattering the engines of a cruiser. Missiles followed, smaller, intelligent warheads that swarmed and zigzagged through enemy defenses, disabling weapon systems and carving into hulls with micro-singularity detonators. The Valkyrie moved like a predator in water, slower than the smaller ships but precise, deliberate. Every action was calculated. Every shot mattered. Inside the bridge, Captain Rourke stood like iron, her eyes never leaving the chaos outside. "Any boarding attempts?" she asked. "Confirmed," said Vale. 3 enemy shuttles en route. Attempting breach on lower decks. "Let them try." In the lower hulls, the Valkyrie's interior defense systems activated. Drone units, sleek, skeletal machines with magnetic claws and triple-barrel plasma repeaters, flooded the corridors. When the first Threxian boarding pod pierced the hull, they were met with instant and brutal resistance. The battle was over in seconds. One of the boarding teams made it 3 meters from their breach point before a kinetic barrier sliced them apart like insects. Another pod was simply ejected, thrust back into space, its own inertial compensators scrambled, the crew concussed before they even had time to panic. Back on the Vorthack, Eltrax stared at the feed. "Cease forward movement," he ordered. "Pull back." "It's one ship," Vortha protested. "It's not just a ship," Eltrax snapped. "It's a message." As the Threxian fleet scrambled, retreating behind the crippled husks of their own vessels, the Valkyrie didn't pursue. Instead, its forward cannons locked onto the Vorthack. "Message from the human ship," Kethvar said weakly. "They're transmitting again." The bridge fell silent. "This is Captain Elena Rourke of the US Valkyrie. We did not come here to start a war. But if war finds us, we will end it. You fired first. We answered. Consider this mercy. You may not get it next time." Then the transmission cut. The Valkyrie powered down its weapons. The Threxians, shaken and stunned, held position. Their dead and broken ships drifted among the stars. No one pursued as the human warship turned and began its slow departure. Captain Rourke leaned back in her seat, arms folded. "Damage?" she asked. "Minimal," Nick said. "Primary hull integrity at 94%. No casualties. Threat matrix stable. Then we move on. Set course for the next jump point." "Aye, Captain," Vale said. As the Valkyrie turned, Nyx's hologram flickered beside her, voice low and curious. "They weren't ready for us." "They won't be for a long time," Rourke replied. "But they'll learn, one way or another." Outside the viewport, the Threxian fleet still floated, humbled, broken, and silent. And the stars, once silent witnesses to the fall of Earth, now bore witness to the return of its children. Let me know when you're ready for Section 4, Fallout, Return of the Humans, where we wrap it all up and tease the much larger force behind this lone warship. Absolutely. Here's Section 4, Fallout, Return of the Humans, the final chapter of this 2,800-word story. This section explores the aftermath of the clash, the ripple effects across the galaxy, and hints at a much larger force behind the lone U.S. Valkyrie. The tone is tense, political, and filled with ominous possibilities. Hashtag Section 4, Fallout, Return of the Humans. Minimum 700 words. A week had passed since the Battle of Sector Zeta 9, and still the galaxy trembled. The Threxian Empire's High Council convened in the core world citadel of Varnax, a spiraling construct suspended above a molten ocean, carved from obsidian and veined with gold. The chamber buzzed with barely restrained panic as delegates hissed and muttered in disbelief, their frilled heads twitching beneath crystalline war helms. 7 vessels gone, spat Lord High Strategist Cravel, slamming a talon onto the tactical display. 1 dreadnought crippled. All at the hands of 1 ship. 1 human ship. A low, guttural chorus of unrest rippled across the chamber. We underestimated them, replied Commander Eltrak, standing at the center of the council floor. He was bruised, one shoulder still stiff from the battle, but his gaze was clear. I tried to warn you. That vessel was not just a relic. It was a declaration. Lord Cravel's eyes flared. The humans were eradicated. Their homeworld burned, their colonies scattered. How could they survive? They didn't just survive, Eltrak said grimly. They evolved. The chamber fell silent. A high-caste diplomat from the Oralex Consortium spoke next, tall, thin, skin like cracked glass. Are we certain this was not an isolated incident? A ghost ship, awakened by rogue AI? No, Eltrak replied. The transmission was clear. The U.S. Valkyrie is not alone. They are calling themselves the Terran Accord. That implies organization, infrastructure, perhaps even alliances. He turned to face the gathered lords. They've been hiding, waiting, watching, and now they've chosen to return. For the first time in a millennium, the Threxian Empire didn't feel invincible. Elsewhere, light years away on a hidden outpost buried deep in the Cygni Drift, a shadowy figure watched the footage of the battle for the 100th time. The chamber was dark, lit only by the pale blue flicker of the tactical hologram. The image of the UNS Valkyrie hovered above the display table, rotating slowly, haloed in weapon signatures and shield readings. Its cold, angular design looked like nothing else in the current galactic landscape. It worked, murmured the figure. Behind him, footsteps echoed. A woman stepped forward, tall, clad in a dark gray uniform with no insignia, her voice clipped and clear. The test run is complete. The Valkyrie held her own against multiple capital ships. She was never meant to fight a war alone, the man said. Just a signal that we're back. The woman nodded. Phase 2. Proceed. She saluted and left without a word. The man turned back to the display and watched as the Threxian dreadnought drifted helplessly in the void, weapons melted, command systems offline. The Valkyrie hadn't destroyed it, but it had humiliated it. And that humiliation was spreading faster than any explosion ever could. On the Valkyrie, the mood was different. Captain Rourke sat in her quarters, the lights dim, a mug of synth coffee steaming beside her. The stars outside crawled by slowly as the ship cruised on a stealth route through neutral space. There had been no pursuit, no retaliation, only silence. Status report, she said. Nix's voice replied from the speaker above. Repairs completed. Hull integrity restored to 98%. All systems fully operational. We remain undetected. Rourke nodded and leaned back. We made noise, she said quietly. Yes, Nix replied. A calculated noise. She swiveled her chair toward the wall, where a small, framed image of Earth before the collapse hung. A blue sphere, whole and untouched by war. So much had been lost. Billions dead. Whole colonies wiped out. The soul displacement war hadn't just shattered Earth's defenses, it had shattered belief. But they had survived. In the deep void, in hidden sanctuaries, in cold bunkers buried beneath dead moons. Humanity had fractured, but not broken. She sipped her coffee.
"They'll come looking," she said.
"Yes," Nyx replied. "And we will be ready." In the Outer Rim, on a merchant vessel passing through a trade station orbiting the exiled world of Jaktor, rumors were already spreading. A single human warship had appeared, had destroyed a fleet, had spoken in a voice long thought silenced. Pilots whispered the tale in half-belief, their drinks clinking in disbelief. The Terrans were supposed to be extinct. Yet now their name was returning to lips like a half-remembered curse. Across a dozen worlds, intelligence officers scrambled to verify the reports. Ancient databases were reopened. Old human battle doctrines were studied again. The UNS symbol, long dismissed as a forgotten relic, was suddenly terrifying again. Not because it meant war, but because it meant hope for the oppressed, and fear for the powerful. Back in the citadel of Varnax, Eltrak stood alone in his quarters, staring into the depths of space. He had fought the humans once. Now he would face them again. But this time, it wouldn't be a one-sided purge. This time, the humans had fire. He clenched his fists. "If this is the beginning," he said quietly, "then we are not ready for the end." Outside, the stars shimmered, and in their cold light, history stirred.
The end.
Or is it just the beginning? Let me know if you'd like to expand this into a full novella, add character bios, or even plot out a sequel.